it seems that every soul is drawn to physical beauty, to beauty of some sort. But physical beauty is quite arbitrary. Determined by the time, the culture, the customs and systems, varying from one place and time to the next. And physical beauty is impossible to uphold. It's temporary. There's another kind of beauty that's universal and timeless. The beauty of the soul. This beauty is innate, intrinsic to every human soul. And ironically, I lose my connection to that deep, innate, timeless beauty whenever I focus on physical beauty. Spiritual beauty, inner beauty, the beauty of the soul, is revealed in one's character. The manner in which they respond to day-to-day life. Whenever I draw on the eternal qualities of the soul, peace, love, harmony, truth, purity, power, bliss, and bring those into my activity, there is beauty there. This beauty is not expressed in order to gain respect from others. It is called natural beauty, just part of my nature, not to impress or show. Natural beauty. It's the makeup of the soul, what the soul is made of. I simply need to remember I am a spiritual being. That unlocks the natural beauty of the soul. And perhaps the greatest spiritual beauties are those who can see the beauty in others. enable others to see their own beauty. Such ones are the most beautiful. Om Shanti. Om Shanti. And welcome to Interview with Raj Yogi. Tonight's topic is spiritual beauty. I know that this is actually a topic that Judy very much enjoys, but she enjoys all topics that she shares. But this has actually been on my mind last couple of days, last few days actually. Perhaps maybe in the sense that when it comes to spirituality, one of the things that we're learning in the study that it makes you feel beautiful on the inside. And I'm paraphrasing in terms of some of the language that's used in the study. And was not realizing actually until lately that not sure how much I really connected to that in terms of what that really means. But lately it's been really feeling that these different experiences and the sense of self actually feels like it has a lot to do with this depth of value, and it feels like it's connected to not feeling like we need to constantly add on a lot of temporary external things for that. And so perhaps to start off with this session, what your your thoughts and feelings about beauty, physical beauty, and inner beauty. It appears that everyone is in some way interested in this topic. Some might appear to be more interested in physical beauty and others maybe inner beauty, but ultimately I think it's just beauty that everyone's have a lot of value. I remember when I was young and we'd go to the department store and almost the entire main floor of the store as you walk in would be dedicated to beauty products, perfume and makeup. And so it's clearly very important for us. And please listen. So struggle a little bit today. So keep feedback. It's interesting Instagram. So listen. So interesting. So physical beauty. It's so shaky. Quick switch moves. So, stand to be confused with let it smoke. Because they're so just let us know on Instagram, YouTube, whether it's okay. Hmm. Into plan C. Here comes plan C. Bear with us.
They won't hear us much.
Okay. We're coming in because plan C is the actual computer camera. Once again, if both Instagram and a little clear,
Well, hopefully once the
it's clear now. Okay. So we'll just keep yelling, very little clear. It's wow. Comments are flying. I'm not sure. It's good. Okay. Well, sorry. It's kind of funny. So, when it comes to physical beauty, it's very conditional, depending on one's culture, one's time period. But we also use this idea of beautiful and ugly in other ways. For example, we'll say, wow, that was a beautiful moment. Or, I seem to respond in a very ugly way. So clearly we have some ideas that address the inside as well. So we seem to be on a continuum between physical and inner. And the physical is very arduous, very hard on the soul, and actually is reducing the value, the feeling of value. Whereas the inner beauty is much more natural and easier on the soul, and a sense of increasing the value. I'm just perched.
trying to pay attention to what you're talking about.
I was babbling after a while.
No. Well, I do find it's really interesting that perhaps maybe we aren't able to diagnose ourselves trying to do these add-ons, but it's not really fulfilling things within. What was your experience when, you said beauty was such an important thing to you growing up, but don't know if you were able to articulate or not, that when you came into the study, did you find just some of your ideas of physical beauty just very naturally, not intellectually, but naturally start to just fall away?
I think from very young, there was an interest in beauty. We were exposed to a lot of what we call the aesthetic arts. So fine arts, ballet, music. And there was always that question of what moved something from being very competent, checking all the boxes, into that realm of beautiful. So a painting, someone could be technically skilled, but when did it become beautiful? Or a dancer moving, when did they move into the realm of beautiful? And I was very aware historically that these aesthetic arts had less to do with the physical sort of prowess, if you will, physical competence. It had to do with something inside coming out. If you look at it historically, in fact, many of these aesthetic arts were in service to religion originally.
So it was really about wanting to express something inside initially. And then now more and more, it's so much about the physical and the wowing and impressing. But I don't think that's how it started. So I was very aware of that. And really found it fascinating to see the difference that when there was a reliance on more the physical components to impress people, it automatically led into quite ugly behavior, such as competing, comparing, feeling good or bad, criticism. But when it was relying on something inside, it actually was uplifting to everybody. So, I'm remembering an incident. It was in a competition setting, and they had just put in place, it was dance school competitions. So dancers from different schools in different categories. And they just put in place a rule which actually made no sense to me. Something about if people cheer too much for the performer on the stage would be disqualified. It made no sense to me because I could get someone else disqualified. So it was very strange. But anyway, so it led to a very strange competition. But I remember there was one where it was just two people in the particular category. And the first one walked on, and she was physically everything you felt a beautiful dancer should be. Blonde, blue-eyed, legs that went on for days, tiny. It was very interesting. And then the second person came on, and they didn't look like a dancer at all. They looked like maybe a linebacker. They were very athletic and very different. And so they would come on, and the typical sort of dancer did theirs first, and it was very lovely. And then the second one came on, and the minute the music started, and I would say the soul really started to express, it was absolute transformation. It was undeniable. You had to give this one first place. It was undeniable, even though they didn't physically maybe appear what you expected. Once the soul started to express, it really moved people. And then the music stopped, and they went back to being a linebacker and marched off the stage. So it's a fascinating topic. There's such limitations when we just look at physical, and it leads to sometimes very ugly behavior. But when we look at the inner beauty, it seems to bring something wonderful, move people very deeply when they witness that. So I think it's interesting to reflect on in your own lives, this idea of beauty. It doesn't mean there isn't beauty on the surface, but the beauty on the surface is being driven by something very deep inside. So it actually it crosses cultural barriers as well. I know we're perched, sorry. This probably doesn't look very beautiful. This probably looks frightening. So we apologize.
But inside we really don't mind, and we hope that you don't either. So, it's really interesting because even just when you're sharing that with this spiritual beauty, it seems to move souls. What's going on? Like, is it a vibration? Like maybe we can't answer that question. Maybe it's not really about analyzing it. Maybe that wasn't the point of analyzing. Like how does this all work?
Well, when I think about, and I know this is a sensitive topic for many, but when I think about a soul such as God, who has no body, it's just the spiritual being. And whenever we see something physically beautiful or majestic, we have over time thought God is there. So a physical, in nature, the mountains, we say, oh, God is in the mountains. And I think what's happening is that we have an understanding inside that soul is very, very beautiful, but not at all physical. And we don't quite know what to do about that. But that's such a central quality of God. is a being who is complete with all virtues constantly, which is the most beautiful state. So as children of that one, we also have a sensitivity, very keen interest in that state, because the ultimate beauty is to be complete with all virtues. That's a very gracious being, very majestic being. So it's kind of in our spiritual DNA to be interested in that. But when we forget that we are spiritual beings, all we're left with is trying to find it physically. We're trying to fulfill a spiritual memory through physicality. It's the best we can do. So it's kind of understandable because it's so deep in our spiritual DNA, but we're at a loss as to how to connect to that or realize that, because we've lost our connection to spirituality.
So when you're talking about full of all virtues, each of these, we have really physicalized things.
Yeah, and very often we'll use spiritual language to, when we're trying to advertise or promote. If you look at the names of perfumes or all of these things, we'll often use spiritual language to try to promote physical beauty, which shows again that we're trying to grasp or reconcile what has been separated.
So a big part of why I was reflecting on that was, is it a journey in the sense that you're feeling the real thing, but you're still pulled by some of the old stuff? Like, what's going on with that? Is it that it's just because it's just the old stuff you've been used to, being addicted
I
to
think
it?
we've developed, the soul cannot live without value, and beauty is very deeply connected to our sense of value. So if we can't figure out how to do it spiritually, we're going to go physically. So it's become a deep habit. And you can see in the world that it really puts incredible strain on souls because it's not sustainable. It's just not possible. So there's sort of this incredible industry, expense, labor, strain to try to get that value through beauty the best we can. But we really have a love-hate relationship with it because, I was remembering this morning, some might know this musical group called the Supremes. So their front singer was Diana Ross, very well known. And then there was the others as well. And they, during their time, they were breaking into an industry that didn't even know what to do with people of color. So they had to present a form of beauty, because image was huge, that was very specific. So, they had to dress a certain way, be a certain size, hair was very straight, and this was considered. But then there was another singer who Chaka Khan.
I knew you were going to.
And she, was sort of functioning at the same time, but it was like night and day. Her hair was I related to her because I had the same hair. It was very long and crazy curly, and she did not bother to upsweep it into anything. She just let it go. She was, a larger person. She was on the drums, which is considered very unsightly for a woman to be doing at that time. So she'd be in the back singing with the hair flying. So that's what some do, is they try to rebel and say, I'm being myself. But I still don't think it's quite going deep enough. I'm just creating another container. So we're trying to transcend conforming or rebelling against conforming, and rather connecting to those universal qualities of the soul. So whatever is happening on the exterior, there is that beauty because it's being driven by something very deep. Even how I choose to physically appear, it's driven from something very deep inside.
Do you feel then that, it's interesting. Is it partly habit and also partly maybe I don't recognize what I'm experiencing?
I think it's habit. I think we create what we call comfort zones or familiarity with states that really aren't comfortable at all, nor natural. This is the best we can do. And then we just become, you can say, habit or even addicted to going at things that way. And then we get to a point where we say, I don't want to do this anymore. But now I've invested so much into that creation, that false creation. It's really a challenge to disengage.
You know, there's a phrase in relation to what you're sharing about. There's a phrase in this study: take joy in renunciation, and perhaps maybe even for many, it's like, oh, I don't even know what that means, and even students in the study. But the reason why I was thinking about that in terms of something that I experienced lately, but there was one, and you were there in that situation where a few of us were in this little study group call, and I was in my merry way trying to prepare for this session the next day, and it's mid-afternoon, so there's not that much time actually, and I'm trying to prepare these slides, and I didn't realize there's about 130, and I'm only on slide 10, And then we had take our usual moment of silence, and to my surprise, in that silence, there was such clarity. Why am I doing this? Why? Because I know that it would have to take all day to do, which I did not have that kind of time. But the next moment was because of what I've been reflecting on lately, was that there is so much joy to experience different capacities within myself. And then it was just, I don't know, it just all happened so automatically. It was like, I actually would love to just let go right now. It just feels very appealing. And just in a second, I was like, okay, no, we're not going to bother with the rest of this. And we sort of just let it go. When in previous experiences, it's more like a battle inside, but I already spent so much time doing this. And the reason why I'm asking about this aspect is because spirituality is often seen as something you have to, that you have to let go with a loss, that you're giving up something, and it's a battle just to be able to have a moment of peace. And what I experienced was something completely opposite. And it made me really feel or even just reflect on, what exactly is going on. It's like to be able to recognize what is real value and what is not seems to be a journey, and seems to need maturity, and seems to need power.
I think it's really important to understand that spirituality is renunciation, but I think sometimes a better word is replacement. Because renunciation can sound like I'm letting go and doing nothing. I'm just kicking the whole thing away, and which is really good when it's an aversive thing, but it's actually replacement. So I'm looking at these images on the walls here of the senior students. And one thing that was always very interesting is how they dress. They're always impeccably dressed. And someone might say, are they, there's no makeup. They're just impeccably dressed. So some people who, they say, look, I've had it with physical beauty. I just don't care. I'm going to renounce. They just let themselves go. And what happens is I haven't touched that inner beauty, which includes that self-respect, that deep dignity of the self. I've replaced it with that experience, and now that's going to drive my outward expression. So that's, I think, a really important piece about renunciation. It's not letting go to nothing. It's letting go of the old in order to embrace something eternal, so something new can emerge. So we're talking about emerging a new or natural beauty. So we'll look at these senior students, and to me, they are extremely beautiful, but it's not physical, and it's really hard. I mean, it's really like my physical eyes are looking, and I'm saying, wow, they're beautiful, but it's not physical. It's got nothing to do with physical. If you ask me to describe it, you say, well, they've got white hair, and their eyebrows are really big and uneven, and they got lots of wrinkles, and you're like, oh, beautiful. So no, they're beautiful. They're very beautiful. So, but because the inner now is driving it, that self-respect, that dignity is shaping literally how matter appears. So that's really important. I'm not throwing the whole thing away. I'm replacing it with a different inner experience that now is going to create or emerge in a different outer expression.
I know that we had a little bit of IT issues, so it delayed us a little bit. So I know we're running a little bit late, but what I was really thinking about is that it's then this aspect when you're talking about this vibration plays a role. And if it's really because we are living beings, and so it's really not really just about the physical, and that experience as being a living being is really oftentimes something that's really maybe a challenge to articulate.
Yes, I think they definitely have a beautiful vibe. And we have a saying in the study that the jewelry has to match the jewel. So the jewel, the soul, has a beautiful vibe. So then their context starts to match. So rather than trying to create a container that makes me feel more beautiful, I feel beautiful, and a container worthy of that beauty starts to emerge around me. So it's very interesting to watch things working from the inside out. But yes, they have a very beautiful vibe. And I think souls can feel when someone has a beautiful vibe.
Well, it's a beautiful topic, but I know that we are running out of time. So we'll have a little reflection.
They say that beauty is not skin deep, and it's actually very, very deep. And so I go deep within the self, leaving the physical identity behind, the gender, the age, the size, shape, form of the body. Like taking off a costume and hanging it on a hook. And all that remains is me, the being inside. Looking at myself, I, the soul, in the mirror of inner silence. And what do I see? I see the state of my heart. I see the qualities of the self, my character. I see my capacity and potential. The things that travel with me through time, whatever body I am in. There is the fragrance of spirituality, the beauty of the virtues, the grace of operating at highest capacity. Deep inside each of us, this is actually what we seek. We demand it of others. but in truth, we seek it within the cell. The beauty of the soul is what brings inner peace, inner harmony, true happiness. Next time I look in the mirror, let me look past the physical body. Look deeply into the window of the eyes. And recognize the intrinsic beauty of the self waiting to be revealed. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you for joining with us this evening. Thank you, Judy. It's very lovely. Let's address some of the questions I had and insights in terms of this aspect. So
I think we have to thank everyone for being so beautifully patient as we struggled over here. Apologies for that, but thank you for hanging in.
So a warm reminder, we have an English workshop at the Inner Peace Center. It is on Sunday. I believe it's at 12 o'clock to 3:30. And it is only on site to my knowledge. And so registration is available on Eventbrite. If you just search BK Calgary, but also on the center's website at calgary.brahmakumaris.ca. We'll always have a lot of different sessions online and on site. And so please feel free to visit the website for all of these different sessions. And if you have questions about any sessions or topics you'd like to have us explore, just let us know. Thank you for joining. Om Shanti.